In the late 1990s, there was an explosion in the value teams placed on goaltending. The days of high-flying offense were long gone. We were now in the puck age, a period in hockey history when defense and grit took over the game, as players like Dominik Hasek and Martin Brodeur were taking over games with their elite goaltending abilities. Thus, we would see a domino effect where high-end goalies went from being drafted in the second or third round to becoming the centerpiece of the draft. Dan Blackburn. In 2001, 2 goalies were chosen in the top 10. Pascal Leclerc was drafted 8th and Dan Blackburn was drafted 10th. And not only did he make the Rangers roster, but he did so at the age of 18, which we never see at today's game. But it wasn't that crazy at the time, as Blackburn was the previous CHL goaltender of the year and had many clutch games where he would take over during his time in the Western Hockey League, and in his first season he played some good games in the minors. Although the stats were not impressive, you could see the potential. The following season, Rangers starting goaltender Mike Richter would miss the majority of the season due to a head injury, forcing Blackburn, now 19 years old, to step up and record his first shutout. However, it became clear at this time that such a rigorous workload for a teenager may have serious effects, but Blackburn dismissed these worries, claiming that he was used to heavy lifting from his WHL days, and then the unexpected happened in the next training camp. During a workout, Blackburn suffered nerve damage in his left shoulder that caused him to permanently lose function in his left hand, meaning he could no longer wear a glove, and this injury caused him to miss the whole 2003-2004 season. He would return, however, with 2 blocks, one of which had been slightly changed to include a glove, which was crazy. He was the first and only goalie in the NHL to utilize this method, but it had such a negative influence on his career that Blackburn never played another NHL game. During the lockdown, he attempted to play in the ECHL, but the results were clear that it wasn't going to work. And thus, after taking on the impossible job as starting goaltender of the New York Rangers as a youngster, Dan Blackburn would retire from the game of hockey due to nerve injury. Pierre Turgeon. This next segment has to be one of the pettiest things I've ever heard of in professional sports history, because back in the 1980s, rumblings of a potential superstar joining the Buffalo Sabres were emerging as Pierre Turgeon was lighting up the league as a rookie, putting up 114 points in 69 games as well as joining the International Canada team. He would be one of the team's youngest members, competing against the greatest players from around the world. Turgeon would blaze up the next season, racking up 69 goals and 154 points in only 58 games, and solidifying himself as the next first overall choice. Turgeon was an obvious pick to make the World Juniors roster during his draft year. He was only 18, but he was a stud who had previous Team Canada experience, and in this tournament, stuff went down, as we would witness one of the craziest line brawls in hockey history, named Punch-Up in Piestany, as future NHL stars Shanahan McGillney and Theo Fleury were all chucking fists at the opposing team, which would result in everyone getting banned except Turgeon and goaltender Jimmy Waite, who chose not to fight. And his teammates and team representation were so upset that Turgeon did not fight that this was the last game Pierre Turgeon would ever suit up in a Team Canada uniform. And even though he played nearly 20 years in the NHL, including a 58-goal, 132-point season, Team Canada was so petty that he would never be considered for the team again. And despite the fact that Turgeon finished his career ranked 34th of all time in points, many people believe that because the Hockey Hall of Fame board includes many players involved in this line brawl, they have effectively blacklisted Pierre Turgeon from ever making the Hall of Fame, because despite Turgeon's incredible career in which he finished 34th of all time in points with a 1.03 point per game average, it was not a coincidence that he never played for Team Canada again. If you don't have the accolades at the NHL level, international success plays a significant factor for many Hall of Fame inductees, which he obviously doesn't have. Turgeon didn't get the help he needed to become more successful, but we need your help to grow our channel. Subscribe and like the video to help with the YouTube algorithm. Mason Marchman. This dude has a fascinating story, because after playing junior hockey in the OJHL, it wasn't too surprising that Mason would go undrafted that following summer in the 2014 NHL draft. But it was a good thing, as he would join the Erie Otters and team up with Connor McDavid. But with 26 points in 54 games, he was still considered a regular junior. Marchman, on the other hand, would keep working until he earned a roster spot with the AHL's Toronto Marlies. He would then spend some time on the coast and begin contributing at the AHL level, with 26 points in 44 games being his career high. However, Mason would have a good camp in 2020 and make it to the Florida Panthers, where he would play in the bottom 6 and put up 10 points in 33 games. Nothing out of the ordinary, but considering this man was not only undrafted in the NHL but also in the OHL, the fact that he stepped on NHL ice is remarkable. The following season, Mason would break out with the Panthers, scoring 18 goals and 47 points as a 26-year-old rookie, including a 6-point game. Marchman's 47 points last season were the most he had since he was 16 in any league at any level. The guy played in the under-18, the AHL, the ECHL, also known as the minors of the minors, you name it. And not only that, but Marchman would score 2 goals in his first game as a Dallas Star. And Marchman's story is one that kids playing hockey can look up to because it's clear this guy never stops the grind. He never surrenders. Pat Verbeek. If you grew up playing hockey in Alberta, you're going to face farm boys, players that play hockey during the season and work full-time on the farm during the off-season. Like the man himself, Daryl Sutter, another farm boy I have to mention in this video is Pat Verbeek. After an impressive rookie season in the OHL, Verbeek was drafted 43rd overall by the New Jersey Devils in 1983, and he would make the Devils' opening night roster where he would impress, scoring 20 goals and 47 points in a depth role. The next season, he regressed with 33 points, but his goal-scoring potential was still there, but that wasn't obvious in May of 1985. Pat Verbeek would return to the family farm immediately after his sophomore season, just in time for his other season, the farming season, and in a rare accident, Verbeek would get his hand too close to an auger, resulting in his thumb being hacked off. Fortunately, his father and brother recovered his thumb and rushed him to the hospital to get it reattached. But here's the catch. Fingers and thumb are obviously a really important component of holding a stick, and Verbeek not only did not miss a single game the following season due to him losing a thumb, but would score his career high at the time in goals, as he scored 25 goals that following year, and he would end up scoring 40-plus goals 6 times in his career since then, because in a moment where you think your career would be finished, if not severely hampered, Verbeek somehow didn't skip a beat. He went on to become a star goalscorer, finishing his career with 521 goals, ranking 37th all-time. Not bad for a guy who had to go through what I can only imagine was ridiculous physiotherapy just to be able to use his thumb.